Hi, everybody. This is Mark Fisher, and we are streaming live on two channels, Scientology Peeling the Onion, and also on my other channel, Las Vegas Travel and More. And this is a viewer Q&A, and so you can get in the comments and chat, write questions, comment. We're going to bring up your comments and answer any questions that you have. And we've got some other features that I'm going to include in here as well. But I have a guest host, co-host today. Janice is out of town for family for the Memorial Day weekend, and this is kind of a Memorial Day themed show. But it's the first time we've done a live Q&A on the Scientology Peeling the Onion for a while. So if you've got any questions or anything like that, any comments, please get in there. And then, of course, but we'll get started with the show right now. Hold on. I'm back, and I'm going to introduce my co-host for the day. Many of you know him. He's a good friend. He does great content as well, and I was really happy that he agreed to be on with me for this Memorial Day show. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Denver Steve-O. How you doing, Steve?
Cheers, everybody. I'm good. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing just wonderful. It's a beautiful day, Sunday, Memorial Day weekend here in Las Vegas. We're like in the mid 80s, which sounds hot to a lot of people, but there's no humidity. So it's
Right.
just very pleasant. And I've been walking my dog and doing things like that. How about you? How's your Memorial Day weekend going?
Very good. It's like mid 70s here today. So with a nice breeze where I am. We have it's been rainy the last week, but today looks like it's going to stay a clear day and no thunder, no any of that stuff. So just excited about it. And yeah, the day has started well. I've been lazy. I haven't walked my dogs, but I've sat out on the patio watching them run around outside in the backyard. So yeah, it's just it's and a nice cup of coffee this morning. It's been good, so it's good to be here too.
Fantastic. Well, I want to welcome everybody that's watching right now. Hans Christian Schwartz, thank you so much. And I've been putting up other comments from other people in the chat. Get in the chat, ask questions, write question if you'd like, so we can answer it. Or if you want to comment on anything that we're talking about,
absolutely,
put your comments in there and we'll pop them up. And this is a free flow of information and communication back and forth. But we just want to welcome everybody here right now. Anyway,
and we are actually on 3 channels. We're on Denver Steve-O as well. But get your butts over to the Las Vegas Travel and More channel. Watch from there. This is one, it's Mark's show, and 2, let's get his watch hours up there. That's just everybody. If you're not on Las Vegas Travel and More, swing on over to that channel and watch from there. I promise the content will be the same.
That's great. Yeah, I just was going to mention, my Las Vegas Travel and More channel I've had for about 8 months. I just this week went over 3,300 hours, viewing hours. So I have to get to 4,000 hours, but over 3,000 now. So people can actually super chat or super sticker me or super thanks in the chat if they like now, because I've been partially monetized. So you can do that. And then I'll be rolling out memberships for my channel, which I can also do now. And I think the other thing I could do is a merchandise store. So stay tuned for that coming forward. We'll be going forward with that. A couple things I wanted to mention is that, hi, Mary Kay London, it's good to see you here. On our Scientology Peeling the Onion channel, I did a survey in our community yesterday, community tab. I just learned about these polls that you can do, these image polls, So I did one, and I asked about what kind of content would you like to see on our channel? And basically, I asked, L. Ron Hubbard. I gave 4 options. One was L. Ron Hubbard and his history. 2 was David Miscavige and his history, any stories about him. 3 was former member stories. and 4 was news and current events. Okay. And overwhelmingly, over almost 300 people responded, and 61% said they wanted former member stories. Okay. Second place was a distant second, was L. Ron Hubbard at 15%. And then current news and events was 14%. And then David Miscavige, of course, was pulling up the rear at 10%. So anyway, I was happy to see that, because on our channel, we've been concentrating on doing just that. We're rolling out on our Scientology Peeling the Onion channel 2 videos a week, and we're basically interviewing former members and letting them tell their stories. And many of these people have never spoken out before. And I don't know if you've seen many, Denver, but basically, like I just put out our 3rd interview yesterday with Belkacem Faraj, who got in Scientology when he was 20 years old in 1968 in Algeria. He was the liaison person in Algeria when the Royal Scotsman, the Apollo, showed up, and he became friends with the people on the Apollo. So he stowed away on the boat and became a Scientologist, right? And by the time he was like 21, 22, he had gotten trained up in Scientology up to the point where he became L. Ron Hubbard's personal Scientology counselor and auditor. Okay.
Wow.
And
yeah.
Story is amazing. And then later, he was the first one that kind of went out with Diana Hubbard, L. Ron Hubbard's daughter. And, one thing led to another. And about a year or so later, he was in Copenhagen, Denmark, and he got called back to the ship by Hubbard because Hubbard had found out about it. And he called him back specifically and called him up to his office and then slugged him in the face for basically having his way with his daughter, So he tells the story in detail. He actually understands why a father might do that, but he then left Scientology a few years later than that. And then he had this huge career as a restaurateur in California, and then also going back and forth between Morocco and the U.S. importing stuff. And now he's retired there. And so anyway, that's just one example. We've got other shows coming up. This coming week, we're going to be doing another interview when Janice gets back with Holly Carlson, who was the commanding officer of Western United States in the 1970s. And then she was also the commanding officer of the Flag Land Base before her and her husband, who was the commanding officer of the Flag Service Org. They left in 1983. And we did her first interview about 4 weeks ago, and we're going to do part 2 on Wednesday. And then we have Jorge Avila. We did an interview with him a couple of weeks ago, and this is going to be part 2. And he was born in Scientology in Mexico. And then he came to the United States when he was 10 years old with his family because they became Sea Org members. And he basically was left on his own. You know what I mean? So he was abused in Mexico, and then he ended up being in charge at like 12 and 13 years old of the cadet organization. So he had like 200 kids that he had to take care of. And so he tells all these stories. He eventually made it up to the international base as a security guard, and then he left in 1997, I think it is. So we've only gotten partially through his story. So we're going to be doing another interview with him, and that's coming up at the end of this week. So we've got lots of interviews coming up. We're actually booked almost through the whole month of June. That's how many people, former Scientologists and Sea Org members, that want to come on our channel.
Wow.
And these are people, some of them you've never seen before. Like one actually lives in your area, I think, still, Steve-O. He's famous because he's the guy who won the $36 million lawsuit against Scientology. It took years. His name was Larry Wallersheim. And I don't know, you weren't a Scientologist, but when he won that lawsuit in like 1984 or whatever, Miscavige came out with the term "not one thin dime" for Wallersheim, because it was the largest,
I've heard it.
largest, decision against them ever. Well, they fought it for years, and then he eventually ended up in Denver, and there was a case called FactNet. And anyway, he ended up finally winning, and I think he got paid like $12 million, but it took like 30 years for him to win that suit, right? Anyway, Larry Wallersheim was also at Celebrity Center when Janice's mother was there, and he's agreed to come on and be interviewed on our channel. So we're going to be having him later on this in the month of June. So anyway.
He's an awesome story. No, I was just going to say he's one of those stories that being a never in, there are some stories that just pop out at you, and the Wallersheim story is definitely one that's I can't wait. I can't wait to see that. That's awesome. I didn't realize he was here. So Larry, if you want to come on my show, come on in the studio. Let's do it.
Yeah, we've got other people too that are reaching out. I mean, anyway, so that's what we have coming
Very
up
cool.
for people. I hope they you all are looking forward to it. I've got a question here from Beyond Jehovah's Witnesses. Question: did Belkacem become an American citizen? Yes, he did. He actually has dual citizenship. He has Algerian and U.S. citizenship. He lived here for years. He just moved back to Morocco during COVID, right before COVID hit.
Oh.
He actually got stranded. He was moving over there to closing on his house, and then COVID hit, and he couldn't leave to get the rest of his stuff from California and bring his wife. His wife got stranded in Australia. So anyway, yeah, he did become a U.S. citizen. And then another question from Beyond Jehovah's Witness: have you interviewed Hannah Whitfield? Hannah Whitfield is a very good friend of Janice's, and we have not yet, but we are going to. She had some health issues and some health problems, and so Janice is working on lining that up because she's got lots of stories to tell. She used to be the captain of the Apollo, and then she left, and she became like an exit counselor, her and her husband, to help people leaving cults and leaving Scientology. So yeah, we'll be doing that. Anyway, I wanted to move on here briefly. Like I said, if you have comments or questions, go ahead and get in there. This is a Memorial Day weekend here in the United States, and we remember and honor. And what Memorial Day is, some people get confused in the United States. They think it's a tribute to everybody in the armed forces, but Memorial Day, it's different. Veterans Day is the day in the United States that pays tribute to everybody who's been in the military. Memorial Day is for people who died in action in the war, or while fighting for our country. So anyway, so it's a big deal. They put flags on all the graves, and it's also a holiday too for the United States. Because we get the 3-day weekend. Monday will be a holiday, but so we want to pay tribute to anybody out there, any of our viewers. If you had a family member or friend who died in the line of duty, we pay tribute to them. My dad was in the Navy for 23 years, and he fortunately he lived beyond that, but he fought in the Korean War in the Navy, and then also in the Vietnam War. But anyway, so we want to pay tribute. Do you have anything you want to say, Steve?
My grandfather was in the Navy as well. Was in for pretty much the entirety of World War II, and he was a radar operator back in the days when I guess it was the early days of radar and whatnot. But he had a very storied career himself. A lot of the little campaign patches was in Europe and was in Asia for a time. And again, he lived as well. But I know he had many stories of friends that did not, and to all of them, and to all of the veterans that are out there, to all of the veterans, but to all of those who didn't make it. And I don't know what the right, thank you.
No, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your service to all of them. And this is a very special weekend. We do think sweet. It's a 3-day weekend, and a lot of people kind of forget about what the holiday is. I'm not saying that the folks here do, but I know a lot of the people that I work with are just really excited for their 3-day weekends and their barbecues and their whatnots, and there's more to it than that. And so to those that fought, and those who are buried in any one of those thousands, hundreds of thousands of graves, this is for you. So
absolutely. One thing I was going to mention about Memorial Day, which reminds me of, it's that one of my favorite movies, Saving Private Ryan. It came out in 1999, and I remember going to the theater to see that movie. I was looking forward to it, and the first 20 minutes of that movie is just the D-Day landing, and it is intense, very graphic. And Steven Spielberg directed the movie, and the way they did it, it was pretty amazing. But one of the parts of it was his Matt, what's his name?
Matt Damon.
Damon. His character as an old man goes to Normandy Beach, to the cemetery, the American cemetery there, and you see all the graves there from the people who died in France during the Normandy invasion. And I actually have been to that cemetery. I went to Paris. I traveled to Paris, gosh, almost 20 years ago, and I specifically wanted to take a day trip to Normandy, and so I signed up for a bus, and they took me there on a trip to go to the Normandy beaches and see the the fortifications that are still there that the Germans had put in there. And then you go to the cemetery and you walk on the beaches, and after seeing this movie, it's just very impactful. What these guys had to put up with and what they had to do in order to save civilization, really, because they were losing. They were losing before the D-Day invasion, and that was quite sacrifice. So anyway, if anybody's haven't seen Saving Private Ryan, I'm sure it's available on streaming services. Have you've seen it, haven't you?
I have seen the movie many times. It is probably far and away my favorite. And it's hard to call it favorite, but my favorite of the the World War II films. You're right. Those first 20 minutes, I heard stories that there were when that movie first came out, there were people that had to leave the theater because they were nauseous from those first 20 minutes. It's just that intense. Yeah. And quite honestly, Saving Private Ryan is probably, I'm not a crier in movies. I'm not a that person, but it's probably one of the only movies that by the end made me really tear up. And it was
I'm an easy crier. I cry all the time.
It's just it starts off as this intense war film, and then as the movie progresses, and really by the end there, it's amazingly heartfelt, and it's just the pain and the questions that the elder Matt Damon character asks, and I won't spoil it for anybody who has not seen it. Please do see this film.
Oh yeah,
it's just an amazing film and an amazing tribute to those who fought during the D-Day invasion and fought in World War II. And it's just it's far and away my favorite. We were talking, and I grew up on war films, even before I was old enough to see the rated R films, and but I would sneak in, or I would buy them or rent them on it was VHS cassettes at the time,
right? And
I loved them, but I loved them, and I'm like, action, Rambo, all this, that was great. Saving Private Ryan was like slap in the face. This is not that movie. It is to an extent, but my God, it's just such a.
Well, and you mentioned another movie too that had that similar slap in the face, which was Platoon.
Oh, God.
Platoon was so intense, and it just was like, oh my God, what do these guys have to go through? I mean, they literally put you in the jungles, you know what I mean? Right. And you hear these stories, but you don't really, if you've never been served in the military or went to war, you don't realize how terrible and terrifying it can be. But that was also a pretty intense movie.
And Platoon was Charlie Sheen before he went nuts. So if you want to see Charlie Sheen before he was crazy, check out Platoon.
If you guys have any movies that you remember from Memorial Day or for the summertime or anything like that, get in the chat. Let us know movies that you liked and enjoyed. The other thing about Memorial Day every year since I was a kid was that this was Memorial Day was the Indy 500 auto race, the Indianapolis 500. Now, unfortunately, it was rained out this morning, but it's actually going to be starting here shortly. But basically, that was a that was a tradition in my household ever since I was a little kid. Back in the day, they used to show the Indy 500 on tape delay, so they didn't even show the race until prime time on ABC,
Right.
and they would actually edit it down to like 2 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
But now, of course, for years we've been watching it live. But I've always been a big fan of it. I got to go to Indianapolis one year for the race. And it's quite something. 500,000 people watching a race in these cars. Boy, they go fast and they're very loud.
I've loved Indy cars since, same thing, since I was young. Oh God, I'm trying to remember all the old racers. Was it it's the Andretti's are IndyCar drivers. Yep, and then
Right.
was AJ
The
Foyt?
Unsers, AJ Foyt and the Unsers, Al Unser and Bobby Unser.
Oh yeah. Oh, I
yeah.
Something just awesome about the IndyCar racing. I mean, NASCAR's NASCAR, but IndyCar just can get so intense, and it's just this is just such a staple, and yeah.
Well, and then I told a story last year, when I was in Scientology and I was working up at the international base, they decided for the Dianetics campaign to actually sponsor a car in the Indianapolis 500. And there's a long story regarding that. Anyway, but they got Dianetics on the side of the car, and the guy who was in the car, he was like in the pole position, like the very fastest qualifier and all that.
Right.
He didn't make it to turn 2 on the first lap. He crashed. Like the race started, he turned to turn 1 and was heading to turn 2, and he got wiped out, and that was the end of the race. Miscavige was there along with a lot of the other international executives, and basically it was a big waste of money.
Wow.
Probably just as well people didn't buy books from that, Anyway.
Right.
Yeah, Mary Kay London says, the Unsers from Albuquerque, New Mexico, they have a museum there. That's exactly right.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's cool. Anyway, the other thing I was going to mention about Memorial Day here for me in the United States was it was the unofficial start of the summer. And the community swimming pools opened up on Memorial Day weekend. Okay. I was a lifeguard. That was my first job. I grew up on the East Coast in Virginia, and we had a community pool that you had to be a member to go to. And when I turned 16, that was my summer job for 2 years. And basically, we couldn't wait for the pool to open up, and then we would have swim teams starting, and it was kind of the unofficial start of summer because school would be out in about a week or two after that. Like the first week or second week of June, we were out of school. But on the East Coast, Memorial Day meant swimming.
I had a community swimming pool just down just like, I don't know, 4 or 5 blocks from my grandparents' house. So yeah, we would always go to me and the friends that I had by my grandparents we'd hop on our bikes and we would ride down to the pool. And ours was a little different. Ours was, I think you paid like, back in the day, it was 25 cents or maybe 50 cents to get in. So you didn't have to be a member, you just paid. And everybody was there, and it was just a great time, and we had so much fun doing that. The other thing, and I just thought about it, but so yesterday I spent some time at a friend's son's graduation party. And so again, with Memorial Day, I mean, I know different schools get out at different times, but he had literally just graduated this last week. So the party was this weekend, and kind of another big kickoff to the summer as well. And I remember having my graduation party 1,000 years ago, and everybody comes over, all the friends come over, and they're there for like an hour or so, and then y'all kind of move over to the next party and kind of do that. And yeah, but it's just another sign of summer's on its way. So
yeah, now I guess it'd be a little different in Colorado because it's still pretty cool. It's not hot there yet, right?
It's not hot, and actually I grew up in Minnesota, and so wow. Kind of same thing, right? It's you're right at that cusp, right before it's really getting warm, you've still got some coolness going on, but yeah, right around this time is right around the time that it's starting to get warmer again, 70s. Minnesota is a lot more humid than Colorado is, so, but yeah, we're definitely in a I don't know, a cooler spot here right now before we get into the 90-degree dry, summer months of, July and August, which, yay, those are coming.
Yeah, now Janice has been swimming here in her pool for about a month or so now.
Sure.
She does about 60 laps a day.
Jeez.
And she's already working on her tan. Now, she heats her pool, so that makes a difference, because my other friend Tom has a pool, but he really hasn't gone in the water yet because the water is only like 80-something degrees, like 82 or 76 or what. It's like, to him, it's still chilly.
That sounds good to me. I'd be in that.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to the next thing I wanted to mention. Of course, last week, Apostate Alex was in town here in Las Vegas, and I did this video last weekend regarding, he had a good time here. He was great to hang out with, and I showed him around Las Vegas and all that. In case anybody missed it, I did a quick little video, short little video, and I actually edited it down to about a minute. I'm going to replay it here. And so I hope you guys enjoyed. If you've already seen it, just stick it out. It's only a minute long. But we had kind of fun looking around for the ideal organization here in Las Vegas. So here we go.
Hey, Mark. So while I'm here in Vegas, I've got Captain Davey of the Fake Space Navy here with us. Yeah. He wants to go see the local ideal org.
Okay. Yeah.
Can you help me find it?
Sure. Let's go look for the local Scientology ideal organization as constructed by David Miscavige.
Let's go.
Here we go.
Is that it there?
Right there?
Right there. That one there.
Oh, let's go take a look.
So, Mark, right? I went in and I asked for a tour of the information center, and Captain Davey's here to inspect the org, but they said it's not a Scientology building.
It's not?
No. But it looks like one.
Oh, I see. It's the Mob Museum. I can see where you would mistake it for Scientology Ideal Organization and for OSA, Office of Special Affairs. It's the Mob Museum, otherwise known as the Organized Crime and Law Enforcement Museum. No, that's not the Scientology Ideal Organization in Las Vegas.
Well, there you have it. I edited it down because we then eventually went to the ideal organization, which is in a residential area. And there was a parking lot that easily could hold 200 to 300 cars. And there were 14 cars there. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon and there was nobody there. And Alex walked up to the door, was doing some filming, and then they came and they kicked him out. But, it's just such a joke. You know what I mean? I mean, they spend and waste all this money, buying these properties, renovating them, then putting fake staff in there it's like a movie, like a fake movie set, because there's nothing behind those doors. And it's just a con, just David Miscavige carrying on the con, you know what I mean? Mm. And somebody, Ray Lane says, yeah, it's easy to confuse the two. Yeah, we have the Mob Museum. That's actually what it's called. And I'll tell you just briefly about that here in Las Vegas. It's just literally 3 doors down from my favorite bar that I hang out at when I'm in downtown Las Vegas, called Hogs and Heifers. But anyway, it's the original post office and courthouse. First it was the courthouse and then the post office for Las Vegas, Nevada. And it was deemed a historical building. And so they didn't know what to do with it after the post office shut down. So it was sitting there empty and they couldn't tear it down because it was a historical site. And so they decided, our mayor at the time here in Las Vegas was Oscar Goodman, who used to be the mob attorney for people like Tony Spilatro, who in the movie Casino, Joe Pesci plays that character. And Oscar actually played himself in the movie as well. But anyway, he was famous for defending the different mob people and all that. And he got elected our mayor in 1999, and he is a hugely popular and very successful mayor. And then his wife succeeded him as our mayor, and she's actually going to be leaving office at the end of this year. But anyway, Oscar Goodman said, hey, we should make it into, everybody likes the mob and they like the casino. We should make it into a mob museum. Well, to make a long story short, they went, well, we'll make it this, but it's got to be the Organized Crime and Law Enforcement Museum, which which is actually pretty cool because when you go downstairs, you go on this little tour of the place, you actually see all the information about how the FBI took down organized crime across the United States. So it's very interesting. And when you go to it, you literally go upstairs and then you follow this path down. And the actual original courtroom is there where they held the first hearings on organized crime in the 1950s, the United States Senate, and they held it in that courtroom. So you actually sit down in there and you actually see a little film about it and stuff. And then they also have history of Las Vegas stuff. Like they got stuff on Howard Hughes. They got stuff on how the mob skim money. Oh, and then I forgot, the other thing that they have is a famous organized crime situation in Chicago with the Chicago mob was Al Capone. And a lot of people probably remember that name, Al Capone. Well, one of the things that happened in Chicago back in the 1920s was the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, where they had a whole bunch of these rival mobsters come to this garage, and then they machine gunned them down. It was on Valentine's Day, so it was the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Anyway, they have the bricks from the brick wall where the guys were lined up and where they got shot. So they actually have bricks there in that mob museum as well. So anyway, so anybody coming to Vegas, it's a good 2.5 to 3 hours, but it's really well worth it. And so anyway, but I thought it was funny, like you said, OSA, organized crime. Yeah, no,
sure. No, it's fun. That's interesting. That's interesting. That's another, that was another genre that I've always been interested in, probably because, there have been some good directors that have done some good mob movies over the years. But I remember the Capone story from a few different things, but of course the Untouchables from I think it was 1987, and Robert De Niro played Al Capone in that, and just intense. In fact, for some reason, I don't know why, but I was just thinking about the scene where Al Capone was talking to his capos at a conference table, and he was walking around with a baseball bat, and we'll leave it there. But just a great intense scene from that film, and Sean Connery was amazing in that film, and that was one of Kevin Costner's better roles as Elliot Ness. But it was just an amazing movie, and I loved Casino, of course, loved Goodfellas, all kind of mobs from different geographies, right? I mean, there was Las Vegas, there was Chicago, there was New York,
Kansas City,
but the mob stories are just so, there's something so interesting about them, probably because I've never really dealt with the mob, but also just because they're there's this humanity and this lack thereof in all of these stories, and it really makes for kind of compelling viewing. So that was I never knew that the Pesci character was that whole thing. I didn't know that his lawyer ended up becoming the mayor. I had no idea. So that's some interesting stuff.
Yeah. Hello, Purple Groovy 69. Hello, Steve.
Groovy. Hi, Purple Groovy.
Nice to see you here. Thanks very much for coming. And that movie Casino is based off of that story of Tony Spilotro and this other guy, Lefty Rosenthal,
right,
who was at the Stardust Hotel. Yeah. And so, they filmed it all over town here and all that. But it's interesting. I'm actually going to do a video for my Las Vegas Travel and More show at some point here soon. There's a lot of different mob locations here in Las Vegas that I'm going to take some video at, like Tony Spilotro's home, like, some other things that happened as well. And just put together a little video about it because I think a lot of people are fascinated by the mob. We don't have the Italian mob here anymore. I've talked to some law enforcement people, 10 years ago, and they said it was more like Russian mobs and stuff like that now. But I don't know. Who knows what's going on here now?
Wow. Yeah, I've heard that. No, I was just going to say I've heard that the Russian mob has kind of taken over. I didn't realize in Vegas, but interesting. That's
Yeah.
yeah. Wow. Yeah.
If you guys got comments or questions, get in the chat. We're going to pop them up here. So anyway, just write question and we'll answer them and all that. I'm going to move on to our next little section here, which is, what are you watching? Okay. And this is where I'm going to talk about shows that I'm watching, and Steve-O can comment. And then if you've got any shows right now that you're watching on a streaming service or channel that you would like to recommend to people, get in the chat and let us know, because I know a lot of us are couch potatoes, particularly as I get older, and I watch quite a lot of stuff on the tube. Okay. So since it's Memorial Day weekend, one thing I was going to mention is Band of Brothers, which originally was on HBO 20-something years ago. I never saw it. I never watched it, but it's now on Netflix. So I watched it about 5-6 months ago, and it's really, really well done. And it's about the Easy Company in during World War II, and going through basic training all the way through. They made it all the way through the Battle of the Bulge and all that, and it's like a mini series. It's like, I think it's 8-10 episodes, something like that, produced by Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks. Did you ever see the Band of Brothers?
I have. I have. I actually. I'm trying to remember. So Band of Brothers was the first, and it was amazing. And cast is amazing in there. There's a lot of folks that we've seen in other things. But then so they did Band of Brothers, and then there was another one which was based on, I believe it was based on like the Pacific Navy folks. And I'm trying to remember what that one was called, but it was kind of in the same lines of Band of Brothers. And I ended up buying the Blu-ray box set that included both of those. And so every once in a while, I've probably seen Band of Brothers twice, maybe 3 times now, and it's just an incredible. Again, it's one of those things like Saving Private Ryan, but in the HBO, in that limited series capacity, you're able to tell that story over 8-10 weeks, as opposed to telling it over 2.5 hours. And it's a very compelling story, and it's a very, very good, just a very good series. So yeah, if you have Max, I'm sure.
It's actually on Netflix now. You can.
Oh, it's on Netflix now. Oh, so
absolutely.
If you've got Netflix,
that's where I watched it. I watched it on there,
perfect.
or HBO Max. I think it's on there too.
Okay,
but,
yeah.
Netflix. So it's really available for anybody who hasn't seen it. That's why I hadn't seen it, because it was on HBO. Right. I have a friend who told me, when I told him, "Oh, I just watched this. It's really good." He goes, "Man, you haven't seen that?" He goes, "I watch it every Memorial Day, the entire series, the whole weekend, and I've been doing that for years." I said, "Oh, okay, I understand now. Now I see it." Yeah, check it out. It's on Netflix. It's called Band of Brothers. I wanted to pop up. Thank you for the super chat here. This is from Ray Lane. Moved to Vegas in 1985. Those I worked with said Vegas was safer with the mob running things. Yeah, I've heard that too. A lot of people have said that. There were a lot of things that have changed in Las Vegas. And while the mob is no longer running things, it's all corporations. It actually was cheaper. You could get a 99-cent shrimp cocktail, and you could go to a buffet for $6.99 for dinner. Now that's all gone, because these big corporations, their bottom line is their stockholders. And so it's very expensive now to come to Las Vegas. It's not like it used to be, where you could have a really cheap weekend if you didn't gamble, and you could eat and see a show and all that without spending a lot of money. And of course, the mob used to run things here, and gambling was the major source of income in Las Vegas. It's not anymore. It used to be about 65% of the income from a casino, hotel casino, was from gambling. Now it's more like 40 to 45%. They get over 30% of their income now from nightclubs and DJs, believe it or not. All the young people that want to go in there and get bottle service and see these DJs. And so it's the income model for Las Vegas has changed quite a bit. And they don't give away food anymore unless you're a hardcore gambler and stuff. It's a shame. Anyway, thank you so much, Ray. Appreciate that. All right, next I want to go to another something else I'm watching. This is on Amazon Prime. If anybody's got Amazon Prime, it's called Outer Range. Now, this is the second season, just dropped about a week ago, and the first season was 2 years ago because I couldn't remember. I really loved the show, and I went, gosh, it seems like it's a long time because I started watching the first episode of the second season. I couldn't remember a lot about it, so I looked on Wikipedia. Sure enough, the first season ended 2 years ago in May. So I was like, oh, now I got to sign to refresh my memory. But it stars Josh Brolin. It's a science fiction show, and it takes place in Wyoming. And he's a rancher. And all of a sudden, this huge hole shows up on his property. And anyway, a lot of strange things happen in this hole. And it's very sci-fi, very, spiritually kind of strange and that type of thing. It's really good if you like that kind of show, and it's got great cast. But since if you haven't seen it, now you can watch season 1 and then also season 2 without having the 2-year break like I had to have. And anyway, so it's called Outer Range, and it's on Amazon Prime. The other show I wanted to recommend that I'm watching right now is on Apple TV. This is Dark Matter. It's called. It's on Apple TV. A lot of people don't have Apple TV. But it stars Joel Edgerton and Jennifer Connelly. And this is kind of an interesting one if you're a Scientologist, a former Scientologist or whatever, because this show deals, I've only watched 3 episodes so far, but this show deals with the fact that people are living in parallel universes, and they kind of move between parallel to another universe that's parallel to theirs. And this guy does, and like he has a relationship in his real universe with his wife, but then he goes to the other one and she's there, but they're not married, and there's all this other strange stuff going on. And how did he get there and all that? It's really interesting. It's another science fiction type of show, but that's on Apple TV. I don't know, how do you feel about streaming services, Steve-O?
I honestly, I'm addicted to streaming services. I haven't really walked into a movie theater since COVID. I'm trying to even remember what my last film in the theater was. But I love the fact not only can you pretty soon after a movie comes out, they're on these streaming services, but the series and the movies that are made kind of exclusively for these services, the companies, everything from Netflix, Apple TV, they've put so much money into these that the quality, it's not like watching basic cable back in the 90s when it was just kind of, oh, here's a cheesy little something. They're putting a lot of money into it, and granted, we're spending a lot of money watching these streaming services, but and I agree, I have to check out Dark Matter too. That sounds fantastic. But yeah, it's another business, for sure, but
I have a recommendation. I have a recommendation. I have, obviously, Netflix is kind of a staple for me, because I've watched a lot of Netflix. And I have Amazon Prime because I order everything from Amazon and you get free shipping. So, and then you get Amazon Prime with it. So those are my 2 staples, right?
Of course.
But what I ended up doing now is like Apple TV, right? There were a couple shows on there that I'd heard about that I wanted to see. So I thought, well, maybe I'll go ahead and pay the $8.99 to have it, right? And I'll watch the shows, and then you can cancel it after you're done. You know what I mean? So it's like $8.99 is less than going to the movie theater to see a movie, and you can watch whole series. So there's no obligation for you to stick with Apple TV or Hulu or HBO Max or whatever. So you can actually just sign up. When you're done, cancel, and you're done, So that's the way to do it. And I highly recommend it. I watched on Apple TV, talked about this show last week. You're a monster fan, aren't you? Because I'm not, but I watched this show called Monarch, Legacy of Monsters, about Godzilla. And I watched that on Apple TV, and I really enjoyed it. It was with Kurt Russell. He plays his son plays the younger version of him, and then he plays the older version.
Oh, okay.
And it's about the Godzilla story, which I've never really followed, but I really enjoyed it. And then I watched this other show on there too called Sugar, with Colin Farrell, where he's a detective.
Yes.
And I'm not going to give away the stuff on that, but it's really good. So now I'm into Dark Matter. So when I finish with Dark Matter, if I don't want to watch anything else on Apple TV, I just go on online and just cancel the Apple TV, and I'm done. But you can do that for all of these services. So that's a way I just wanted to recommend people. If you don't want to get stuck, you're not in a contract with these people, so you can do it anywhere else. Yeah, Mary Kay London says Sugar is good. It was really good. I really enjoyed it, and there'll be a second season hopefully coming up next year. But yeah, it was really good. Anyway, so that's my few feelings on the streaming services.
My problem is I get hooked and I can't let go. I had Max because I had a subscription to HBO because I had a few shows that I absolutely needed to watch on HBO. I'm trying to think now. I'm just blanking out to which ones they were, but and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm watching stuff, and then I find myself watching more. I mean, things like it was back during COVID, but when Dune came out, Dune was released on Max, and I watched Dune on Max, and now I think the second Dune
2 is on there. I haven't watched either one of them.
On there. Yeah,
I've heard they're fantastic. I haven't watched either one.
Right,
so
right.
Do that. Yeah.
But then I find myself watching more and finding other things and going, and then I won't watch something for a while, but I don't cancel because it's that fear of missing out, that FOMO, right? I'm like, what's the next thing that's going to be on? Now on Netflix, there's Baby Reindeer, there's the series To the Lincoln Lawyer, there's the series Ripley, which is based on the talented Mr. Ripley from the Matt Damon movie.
Oh, no kidding. I didn't know that.
And I mean, there's all this great stuff on Netflix right now, but then Max has got these great things on as well. And then Apple TV Plus, I mean, it's constant good new stuff that's there that so I get into the point where, and you're absolutely right. And, I'm like, can I cancel? What am I going to miss out on? And so I've always been the fan of if it's possible, trade your logins with folks. Hey, you've got the login to Disney Plus, I've got the login to Max. Wink, wink. And you get the best of all of the worlds. But I mean, I love this stuff, and when the streaming services first came out, I was the first of them. When Netflix kind of first turned into that, I'm like, I don't know. I've got the DVD thing, so yeah, I'll get this, and then all of a sudden I'm in it, and then Disney's got all of the great Star Wars stuff. That's and I love watching those on there, and so. I've got 4 or 5 now, and I know I'm paying, and I'm afraid to leave them because what's going to be on there, and I'll have to I'll have to rejoin.
Yeah, no, it's pretty amazing. And Mary Kay London says, I watched The West Wing on Max, and whose line is it? Yeah, they have old shows as well on a lot of these streaming services that if you missed them back in the 80s and 70s or whatever, there's another one. I never saw the Rockford Files, and I watched some of those, and because everybody talked about James Garner and the Rockford Files. It's kind of funny to see Los Angeles in the early 1970s, and there's smog over the city. You know what I mean?
Right.
They've managed to clean up the air, but it's kind of fun to do that.
And I'm a huge West Wing fan too, so that's I used to watch the reruns on Bravo when they were running them, and I'm like, then you got to deal with all the commercials and all of that, and but my God, to be able to have the West Wing at my fingertips, and old shows like that's just and we haven't talked about Hulu, and Hulu's got incredible programming as well.
Did you watch Shogun?
I haven't gotten to it yet. I know.
Oh my God,
I know.
It's amazing.
It's there as I have to. I've still been watching Shark Tank reruns on Hulu right
There you
now.
go.
So that's,
You know, the other thing I was going to say on Netflix that I'm watching, I talked about this last week, but I'm really enjoying it again, is Black Sails is on Netflix.
Oh,
That's Pirates of the Caribbean, Game of Thrones style.
right.
Okay, it came out, and I was on Stars originally, and they had like 5 seasons and it ended in 2017. Now
Yeah.
it's on Netflix. Oh, it's fantastic. I'm
Oh.
almost done with season 1 again. And it's produced by Michael Bay, who did like all the, you know, the Transformer movies and all the bad boy and action movies and stuff. And it's really, really well done. Black Sails is something I wanted to mention. Something else that I mentioned also on my channel, Lean on Me says, Unfrosted by Jerry Seinfeld is cute. Has Megan McCarthy, especially for us old folks, brings back memories of the 70s. Yeah, I talked about that, I think last week or the week before. It's really funny. It's about the creation of the Pop-Tart in the 1960s, and that's really the premise of the movie. But it's just silly stuff about growing up in the 60s and 70s and all the different, you know, stuff that was going on with toys and cereal and this and that.
It's called Unfrosted.
Unfrosted, and it's got 50 cameos in it. Famous comedians playing different parts. Bill Burr plays John F. Kennedy. Okay, you know, there's just it's really funny. Now, and I had to describe this to a friend of mine. It's like the movie Anchorman with Will Ferrell, where he's Ron Burgundy. You know, it's a silly movie. Even Jerry Seinfeld says Unfrosted. It's just a silly premise, but it's funny because it basically goes line, joke. Line, punchline, line, punchline. There's stuff I watched it a second time because there was stuff I missed the first time I watched it. So I definitely recommend for us old fogies, Unfrosted by Jerry Seinfeld.
I might have to watch that tonight. That's, oh my God.
Your family, if you watch it, it's great. I mean, it's really funny. Yes, it's about the war between Post cereals and Kellogg cereals to come up with a Pop-Tart. A breakfast, you know, it's really funny. Anyway,
there were no microwaves in the 60s.
What's that?
There were no microwaves in the 60s. It was all toasters.
Yeah. Anyway, it's on Netflix. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So Unfrosted on Netflix. Right.
Cool.
Anyway, I want to go on to our next little segment here, and then we'll get to your questions. Okay. So if you have questions or comments, just go ahead and get in there. What are you reading? Okay, and again, along our Memorial Day, sort of theme here, Band of Brothers, the book, the TV series on HBO is based off of the best-selling historical. It's an actual historian, Stephen Ambrose, wrote this about the Easy Company, and it's a great book. So if you're interested in that type of thing, I recommend Band of Brothers by Stephen Ambrose as well, part of our little Memorial Day tribute here. So I just wanted to mention that.
And Ambrose in general is a great historical writer, but Band of Brothers was definitely his, what's the word, penultimate.
Yeah.
The
other one I liked reading about was the one that he did on the Lewis and Clark expedition. Undaunted Courage, it was called. You know what I mean? Lewis and Clark were the ones who came from St. Louis and made it all the way to the Pacific Ocean in the 1800s.
Yep.
And I always am fascinated when you drive across the United States, particularly you living in Colorado, and you go like, how the hell did people get across these Rocky Mountains and go, there must be something on the other side. I mean, the amount of courage, like I live in the desert and I go like, can you imagine riding a horse and, I'll go over this mountain and there'll probably be paradise over. Then you get over on the other side, it's just more sand and desert.
Yep. Well, the next one, right? It's got to go across the next one. That'll be paradise. Yeah. And, and that's definitely an interesting time in history as well. And I just look at the map or look at a globe or look at the maps of the US and I go, look at that over on the west or over on the east. There's all these really small states, right? There's all these like tiny things.
Yeah.
As you move west, the space just gets bigger, and it's because there's, again, it's this desert, and how do you
mountains
and so as things were developed, it just kind of became these larger chunks of space, but to discover all that in the first place, and Lewis and Clark are just again, a fantastic testament to American courage and American will. So
yeah, the name of the book is Undaunted Courage. And he,
Sure,
he's a historian, so he researches all their papers and their diaries and all this sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
It's pretty amazing. I was just going to mention here's this is from Big Rob's. He says, I still remember the original Shogun from the 70s. Yeah, I do too. And I loved it. And the new one, I liked it a lot, but I didn't like it as much as the one from the late 70s, because that one was closer to the book. And Shogun, the book, is my all-time favorite book. I've read it at least 6 times. It's over 1,200 pages. It's my favorite go-to book of all time. And so when I watched it, the new one, I went, okay, they changed things, and they take liberties with books when they make movies and stuff. There were some things I did not care for, but the production value and the costumes and the scenery and it's still, I highly recommend the new one. It's on Hulu right now and on FX, and it's fantastic. That's why I started watching The Monarch, The Legacy of Monsters, because the actress who plays Mariko in Shogun, she's awesome. She's beautiful and she's awesome. Oh, what else has she done? Oh, she's in the lead character in this Monarch Godzilla story. I'm watching that.
So, and that interests me. This Godzilla story, because of course I think it's still in the theaters. Is the what is it? It's the buddy film Godzilla and Kong. Their little buddy film trampling across the world doing their thing. But which is a movie that I really really still want to see it. So maybe I'll have to watch the Monarch thing and then go see the movie, or vice versa, or something. I don't know.
I don't know. It's different. The Monarch thing is an actual series. They'll have a season 2, but it was pretty interesting.
Wow.
Like I said, I'm not really a monster guy, but it was good.
Yeah.
Big Rob says also main actor in the new Shogun was in Last Samurai with Tom Cruise. Yeah, he's the main guy that he's fighting against, and he also was in Lost, my favorite TV series of all time.
Yeah, okay.
I played Dogen, the guy who was in charge of the temple. And then I watched another movie of his too on Netflix called Bullet Train with Brad Pitt. Did you see that? Bullet Train?
I have not seen Bullet Train.
Okay,
no.
It's directed by the guy who does John Wick movies, so it's just action packed, right? So anyway, so they're on it. There's a lot of body count, but it's a funny action movie, kind of like Deadpool. Meaning it's a different type of movie, but it's funny. Like I'm not a big superhero movie fan, but I like funny ones, and Deadpool's like that. Well, this Bullet Train is kind of the same type of thing.
And speaking of Deadpool, the true indicator to the start of summer will be Deadpool and Wolverine coming out in July. I am excited for that. That may be my biggest excitement of the year.
Okay, well, there you go. Mary Kay London, who's a member of our channel, thank you, Mary Kay. She says, an unfinished love story by Joanna Kearns Goodwin. It's about her husband working for President Kenny and Johnson. Very good. Yeah, she's a historian too. Doris Kearns Goodwin is her name.
Doris Kearns Goodwin, I love her.
Yeah, and this is, I guess, it's about her husband. He did work for those different things. I have not read that book yet, so I appreciate the recommendation.
So,
go ahead, Steve.
If you want to see an earlier film about her husband and Charles Goodwin, I'm trying to remember what Goodwin's name was. Quiz show. The Rob, what's it?
I know which one.
You know what I'm talking about. The guy who was in Numbers.
Robert Redford.
Robert Redford directed, but no, it was Rob.
Well,
Rob Morrow played the character.
Right. Okay.
And that character was her husband in his early days.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So and he wrote a huge book at one point, and it kind of did the history of the game shows. Richard, thank you. And yeah, the history of the game shows, and as he worked for Kennedy, and Doris, I've loved Doris's work for years, and she'll show up. I think she shows up on like MSNBC and CNN from time to time, and she's just an incredible historian in her own right. And yeah, I've loved the stuff that she's done. Wasn't she also in some way responsible for the Lincoln movie, the movie about?
Yeah, well, she did. Yeah, she was like a consultant on that.
Consultant on that, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
Based on her.
she's on there all the time. Anyway, I was going to mention, if you've got any questions, get in the chat. We're going to go to those questions here in just a minute here. But I just wanted to mention that, of course, my channel is sponsored by Janice's company, Outback Naturals, Koala Calm. If you're interested in a magnesium drink that's easy to drink, she has it in unflavored and apple cinnamon. It's great if you have stress. It's great if you're trying to fall asleep, anything like that. You can get it and try it. Koala Calm. It's in our merchandise store. Just go down below. I have it, labeled there, and you can order it and get it there. But it's just a really great product from Outback Naturals and Koala Calm, and it's Janice's company. So I just wanted to mention that here before we go to questions, okay? And subscribe to our channel. Got to get the plugs in there, that pays the bills. Anyway, all right. So I got a couple. I think we just have a couple of questions here that I starred, but we'll go ahead and see here. This is from Beyond Jehovah's Witnesses. Question mark. Would you interview Chris Shelton on this show? Absolutely. I know Chris. Chris actually came to Las Vegas when Janice had a book convention about 4 or 5 years ago, actually, and he came and and all that sort of thing. He and I don't agree all the time on his analysis of different things about Scientology, but that's okay. It's not personal. It's just he has an opinion about something. I have a little bit different experience and all that. But yeah, no, I would have him on here. Not a problem at all. So that's the deal.
And Chris, you're always invited on Denver Steve-O as well. So come on over. I'm just inviting everybody today, but. Yeah, I've had a chance to meet Chris too, and I think same thing. I've spoken. I've made a few criticisms about some of his analysis, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's I think everybody's
entitled to their opinion. You know what I mean?
Without a doubt.
And you know what? You learn things by talking to people who maybe have different views than you do. So anyway, it's always good.
That's how I, as a Neverin, have learned most of what I've learned is talking to you and everybody. So it's I've certainly learned a lot from all of you. So.
And Behind Jehovah's Witness has another question. Mark, have you tried Japanese and Thai beers? Which one do you prefer? I'm not a big beer drinker. I literally, Alex made fun of me because I drink beer over ice. When he was here last week, he goes, I'm a British person. I will never drink beer over ice. But anyway, but I do like, I'm like a lager person. So like, some of the Japanese beers that, when I used to fly Japan Airlines over to Japan and to the Orient, I would get like a beer like a Sapporo or a Asahi beer or whatever, and they were good. In Thailand, I like Chang. There's several beers. There's Chang. There's Singha, which is very harsh, and then there's Leo. And I've never really tried Leo, but I have friends that live in Thailand and they really like Leo. So if I ever get back over there, I'll probably try that one out. But I like Chang. And like I said, but I rarely drink beer. I only drink beer if I go out to the bar because they give me my first drink for free because I'm a regular there. Oh. So I just get a Pabst Blue Ribbon and a cup of ice, and that'll last me as long as I'm there. And then I'll say, could you please give me a Diet Coke? Because that's how it is. I'm just not a beer drinker. How about you, Steve-O?
Well, of the foreign beers that you mentioned, Sapporo is the only one that I'm familiar with. Most of the, if I go out for Asian food, that's typically what's on the menu. I'm like you. I'm not a big beer drinker. I'll drink cocktails more often, and yeah, if I don't, I'm very much more of a Diet Coke guy. So, but yeah, every once in a while, I mean, give me a thick beer, and I do like Guinness. I do like getting a black and tan, Guinness and Guinness and Harp. That nice separation that you get of the beers when they start to. That reminds me of when I was a kid and we would do. I forget what it was. We would make those suicide drinks where you just kind of mix everything.
We call them separators, and they literally put in 3 shots and they would separate the liquors or whatever.
Yeah, right. But we would do that with sodas as kids, and it was like you would get Mellow Yellow and Coke, I think, and they would separate and they would do their thing. It was just, ooh, this is cool because we're kids. But yeah, no, for the most part, if I'm not drinking, typically a vodka 7 or something, maybe a vodka cran, I'm just drinking Diet Coke.
It's funny that you mentioned Mellow Yellow. I remember when that came out because I was in Scientology and we had a vending machine in the building that I worked at when I was in management, and they had Mellow Yellow, and I kind of, ooh, this is kind of good, but
Yeah.
it was so sweet, sugar. Mountain Dew was the other one that I really liked, but then I realized that it had more caffeine in Mountain Dew than a Coca-Cola, and I just
Right.
could not drink.
Right. Well, I think Mellow Yellow was Coke's answer to Mountain Dew, and yeah, but you're right. I drank for a while. I was working these late night shifts, and then I would have to drive like 3 hours north, and I would get myself like a 1 liter bottle of back when they had the big mouth lids of Diet Mountain Dew, and it still had all the sugar in there. I mean, it wasn't really that diety, but I would drink one of those on my drive up north, and then I would have to, a few days later, I would have to drive back, and I would do the same thing. And so I lived on those for quite some time. And then I started realizing that I was hitting that age where I was starting to get the gut rot. I was starting to feel, ooh, this is maybe not the right answer for me. So then, yeah, went back to drinking. At the time, it was Coke, or somebody had introduced me to half and halves, which was half Coke, half Diet Coke, and that actually got me to a point where I could handle drinking Diet Coke, and that has ever since that's just been my soda. So
yeah, my soda's Diet Coke. I actually like Coke Zero better if they have it, but I like the flavor better of Coke Zero.
I
they don't carry it everywhere.
No, and I may be weird about this. I found that with Coke Zero, if you're a Diet Coke drinker, Coke Zero tastes like Coke, and if you're a Coke drinker, Coke Zero tastes like Diet Coke, or tastes more like Diet Coke. And it's however I've found it, and I've drank it, and I've gone, it kind of tastes a little bit more like Coke, and it tastes a little bit more sugary to me, which I know it's not because it's zero, but it has that taste. And I've got other people that are Coke drinkers that go, oh God, no, it tastes just like Diet Coke. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. So I've never gotten into the zero as much. I've just stuck with my Diet Coke, but yeah, I've heard that. And I don't know.
Speaking of Diet Coke, Unfrosted, the movie with Jerry Seinfeld,
yes.
They show a guy drinking Tab. Okay, Tab was the original sugar-free Coca-Cola.
Yeah,
it was horrible.
It was hideous.
So bad, but it was sugar-free, and people drank Tab for years until they introduced Diet Coke.
Right. Oh God, I remember Tab. I don't even remember when Diet Coke first came out. I just it in my head was always there. But yes, Tab was this big thing, and it was just this hideous. You're right. It was a horrible drink.
Anyway, I wanted to mention one other thing too, about, you were talking about Asian beers. I actually went out for sushi with Tom Provenzano on Friday night. I went to my first revolving sushi restaurant. Have you ever been to one of those? They've got a conveyor belt. Yeah, it's got a conveyor belt. Oh, it was awesome. It was fun, and some people I'm going to do a video about it, right? Because I took some video and all that. But basically, you go in there and you sit at your table, and there's a conveyor belt going by, and you can take whatever you want. You just take it off, and they're on little plates, and the plates are, any plate you take is $3.25. So whatever you take, you eat it, and then there's a little slot that you put the plate down, and it keeps track of how many plates you eat, right? So so you're just waiting to see what's coming around, and you grab it, and then you eat it, and then something else and all that. But also it had, I had a Diet Coke and water, right? So they had a robot that brings your Diet Coke and water up to your table. This little robot comes running down, moving down to the aisle, stops at your table, and then you just reach over and grab your drinks. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah. Huh.
Anyway, that's that. I got another question here. Let's see here. We got from Purple Groovy 69. Do you think the tourists that come to Vegas are getting a kick out of the Sphere? Yeah, the big Sphere is a big $2.5 billion, you know, arena that they built attached to the Venetian. It's owned by Madison Square Garden Entertainment, and they had you know, U2 was there in residency for a while, but it's inside. It's got these huge LED screens behind them, and so it just takes over. It's like being in a huge IMAX theater, and then the band's down below playing, and they have all these visuals. And I haven't gone. My friend Tom went, and he enjoyed it. Now they actually have the surviving members of the Grateful Dead in there. I don't even know what they're called, but they're in there, and so now they got all the psychedelic stuff from the '60s and stuff playing. But then they're going to have the Eagles are going to have a residency there starting this fall, so they're going to be in there as well. But it's very expensive. Tickets are expensive. And they also have a movie that was directed by a guy named Darren Aronofsky, who's directed some big time movies that
he
they
did Black
use.
Swan.
Yeah. Well, he did a movie about planet Earth and saving the environment and all this stuff. And it's basically to show off the LED screen at the thing. And you can go see that movie during the daytime, anytime. But it's like $100 to go see the movie. You know what I mean? I mean, it's really expensive. But also, I forgot to mention too, you're not just watching. It also, like, you know, puts smell-o-vision in, you know what I mean? Like the smell of you see flowers and you'll smell those flowers, or whatever. If it's raining, you get sprayed with water, or, you know, I mean, it's kind of like experience a vision. So anyway, I have not been to it yet, but you know, that's
so that, you know, they've some movie theaters, they have this what they call 4D, where like the chairs shake and all of that.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it does that. I'm not sure.
But with I was just thinking with the smells and with the mist and all of that, would that be 5D? I mean, seriously, would that be right? You're just putting yourself right in it. That's impressive. But but $100, that may be a little steep.
A little steep for me. I'm not willing to play that anyway. I'd rather sit there and watch Netflix streaming services. You know, for $100, I can, you know, pay my Netflix bill for almost a year.
Right.
Anyway, okay, we've reached the end of the show. I just want to thank Steve-O for being here. Please subscribe to my channel, and also please subscribe to Steve-O's channel as well. We appreciate it. It helps get the word out. Hit that like button. If you've got any questions or comments that we missed, go ahead down in the comment section down below and you can ask. And also, if you'd like to donate to the channel, you can buy me a coffee. There's a link down below. Just click on it. You can buy me 1, 2, 3, 10, 5 coffees, however many you want. It's a way to donate to the channel. The money I get, I just basically put back into the channel. But anyway, you can do that. You can also, of course, super thank us, super chicker us, and all that jazz too. But we appreciate any support that you may have. Anyway, Steve-O, have you got anything else you'd like to say here at the end of the video? I appreciate you coming on with me.
No, I thank you. I had a blast. Thank you to everybody that was here. Yes, please subscribe to Mark's channel. Mine is at Denver Steve-O. So come on over to mine. Appreciated the time. I had a lot of fun, and you know,
everybody have a great Memorial Day weekend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please do.
Yeah. Have a great weekend. Okay. Until next time, everybody. Thanks for coming. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.